Alright, I have this mostly painted. I ran out of paint, so you're going to see some stuff like up here at the top where I've got a little bit of a stripe of the primer. But otherwise, it's pretty well done. Now this is the standalone by itself saddle rack. Let's look at this other one. You can see I have this all primered up, but I didn't have enough paint to come back and paint this, so I'm going to have to come back and do that. But I do have it primed and it's ready to go. Now it's sitting on this rack down here to keep it off of the ground, keep it clean, and I will be coming back and spray painting all of this, getting it all primed up nice and good. Now on this side over here, you see I have these dills. This is where the other piece will slide in. There'll be holes drilled into this with different patterns to make sure rack 1, rack 2, and rack 3, see here's rack 2 right here, rack 1, rack 2, rack 3 are all situated properly. And rather than do this as a one size fits all, I decided to make each one unique because I want to create an interlocking tightness on this frame. So when I get ready to hook all this together, I'll move this to another position where I'll bore the holes with the saddle rack in place, and then once that is done, I'll bolt it, I'll drill the holes on the other side, and each one will have its own unique pattern. This way I guarantee that the thing is interlocked and it's going to be really secure. These are the last 3 racks that I'll be sanding or cleaning up the rust on them in just a few moments, and then I'll be primering and painting them. Right here, what I have is I have this piece that's going to become this flange. I've got it hooked onto here. I'll be setting it onto this and then welding it into place so that I'll have my flanges. Now the saddle rack is movable. These 3 that I just showed you will bolt onto here and bolt onto the other piece, which I just told you I'd finished putting navel jelly on. This will make this rack completely disassemblable and movable. This is the end of the series on building the saddle rack. As you can see, I have space for 3 saddles here, 3 saddles here. I have 3 of these, so the total components of what it will carry is a total of 18 saddles. In order for this thing to be movable, I've got these pieces here that I discussed building earlier, and then I have the flanges welded onto this other piece, which is a standalone. As you can see, I've put my pilot holes into these places, and I'll be assembling this, and then I'll continue drilling this out. They'll save me from having to try to align holes while I'm trying to assemble it. Since this is not a CNC process, this is all a one-off. I was trying to paint, and as you can see, I still have a little bit to go even on this, but the wind was picking up. The paint that I'm using this white appliance epoxy paint, and this is a Rust-Oleum product. If the wind wasn't up so much, I'd be applying this. To remove mill scale, I've been using a Hart paint removal grinding wheel. This is a 4.5 inch. This thing is really durable. I've gone through one of these in the process of working on the saddle rack as well as repainting the UFO and doing a lot of other work. Generally, I'm kind of guessing, but I'm thinking I'm getting 30 to 40 hours out of these. It doesn't take a lot of pressure. You let the wheel do the work, and it works really well. This is a Syntac made in India Harbor Freight that I was using to cut my angles for the wings on the saddle rack. Here we are on top of my burn pit. You see I have a hole drilled in this piece, which is what's going to support the back brace, and I put the punch through there, I tap it, and then I can drill it out, and it'll be right on the money where it needs to go. When I get ready to drill this next one, what I'll do is I'll drop the drill through the thing, drill the hole, and then I'll set a screw in there to hold it nice and tight. The pieces that secure this to the wall, and I discussed that, seeing how there's going to be a lot of disabled people coming in to keep them from pulling the thing over. I'm overbuilding is what I'm doing. But this pole will mount into these holes like this, and then it will mount, the holes will be drilled in this piece here, and it will be mounted to the wall using some lag bolts. That will stabilize the top thoroughly, and as in a previous video I discussed the fact that the feet all have holes in them so that they can be anchored to the concrete using concrete anchors. Of course, I use the Bauer's saw and the wind has blown the box down. These are called transfer punches right here, transfer punch set. This is from Amazon. I don't know what I paid for it. Wasn't much, probably about, I don't know, $15 to $20. It has different sizes, and what you do is you put this punch down inside a hole, and it has a center. So this would align inside the hole, and then this would give you your center so you can drill a hole to the center of whatever it is. Let's discuss that real quick. This is a Hyper Tough. That's a Walmart brand. I've bought a couple of their drills in the past. They've all been good drills. I just bought this one. I've had it for about 3 months, but I just got it out of the box. I don't know if you can see that, but it's leaking oil bad. It's only good for just a very few minutes of use. It charges, it says it's charged in about, say, 30 minutes. However, it lasts for a couple of seconds. You've got to charge it for hours upon hours after the green light comes on to get any kind of use. And there it is, it's just dripping, as you can see. Anyway, this is a Hyper Tough. This is the last Hyper Tough drill I'll ever buy from those clowns. Now, I have some Hyper Tough sanders and what do you call them, 4-inch cutoffs. Those things are still working, but I'm done with these little drills like this. As I say, I have another one. I've just happened to be using this one, and this thing has already failed, and I don't even think it has 2 hours of use on it, and it's already trash. So I'm going to go ahead and use it till it burns up. I'll dispose of the batteries through a recycle system, since they're either lithium hydride or something like that, rechargeables. But, you know, I'm done with the Hyper Tough Walmart brand drills. I would suggest you not buy them. China's been turning out a lot of junk for a long time, but the Hyper Tough had been good tools. Now, I did buy some Hyper Tough drill bits, and they didn't even last me drilling through 1/8 inch metal before the tips were gone. In fact, the tips were gone within a matter of seconds. I've gone to Hart, H-A-R-T drill bits, and those have held up well, and believe it or not, the Harbor Freight cheap titanium drills are far superior to anything that Hyper Tough turns out in a drill bit. So just scratch them off of your list. I drilled the pilot hole with a 1/8 inch drill, and unfortunately up here I broke the thing out. So what I've done is I took and I put a line up here across, and I used a tri-square to get my depth on the other side. Now when I look through this thing I can see daylight, but I want to punch this broken drill back this direction right here, and so in order to do that I'm going to use this 1/16 inch punch, and I'm going to try to reach in there, feel around till I find the tip of this thing, and I'm going to hope that I can drive it back out. If not, I'm going to have to enlarge the hole on the other side, which is difficult because of that broken drill being in there, and use something larger than a 1/16. And I have some other punches that I can use, but we'll see how that works. The saddle rack is all loaded up, ready to be delivered, and these boards that you see right here, 3 inches is about 75 millimeters. These boards that you see right here they'll be cut to 150 millimeters wide, so I'll be getting 2 boards, 250 millimeter boards out of each one of them. And I can't do the math, this is bigger math. 600 centimeters long, something like that. I think that's right. And these will be the boards that go on these fins right here to hold the saddles. Alright, I'm using my Woodland Mills 126. I bought this in 2012, by the way, and it's still running like a champion. Change the oil, change the air filter, do maintenance. It's running great. These boards or this log that you see right here is 14 feet long. I'm cutting it into 10-inch pieces. This one that you see that's cut here is the 3rd one that I've done. These arrows, if you can see them, it's so bright out here I can't see the screen, but if you can see those arrows, those are the 25-inch marks. So I'll be cutting these boards to 25 inches, and in just a moment I'm going to plane them down. Now I have a total of 3 of these boards cut. Each one of these has 6 supports in it, and I'm going to plane it down to a true 1-inch or a 7/8 inch, whatever I think will work best for it. And then once I have this done, then it will be going on to the saddle rack, and we will be taking it to the client. So we're close to being done. I don't know that I'm going to have this finished today, but I'm going to try. I have finished cutting these boards down. They have been planed using a quarter cable planer. They've been planed from the 1 1/4 down to a 1 true inch. As you can see, I have just a little bit of wood chips for my compost pile. This is going to be rich in nitrogen, so it's going to compost pretty quick. I'll be picking that up a bit later. It's late in the afternoon, it's getting cold. I'm going to go in for the night. But this is where we are at this point. Got the boards over here, and I'll be putting a stain with cuprinol on them a little bit later, and ripping them, planing them. I'll run them through a joiner and then through a table saw to length or to width. I'll be running them through a joiner and then through a table saw and rip them to width, and then we'll be putting them on the saddle rack and we'll be taking it to the customer. If you look, now these boards are a true 1 inch by 4.5 inches. If you look, the thing sits nice and level where it's supposed to be. If I was going to make a recommendation to somebody to build a saddle rack like this with these wings up here, what I would tell you to do is to build a jig to set this thing at the correct angle, either from the bottom or from the top. In my case, I kind of eyeballed it, and with the exception of 3 of them, 3 out of 36, I got all these things right. But I would tell you to build a jig. It would save yourself a lot of trouble. And unfortunately, I don't have a shop to work in, so it's rained. I have plastic up on top of this to help keep these corners nice and dry. But I do have some spots on here that I'm going to have to clean off with a wet rag or something. The last step to do will be to get a nice straight edge on this thing. Get a nice straight edge on it and measure off my distance. Now some of these are a little bit more than 25 inches and some are 24 3/4. What I need is 24 1/2, and all of these are the 24 1/2, which is the recommended width, or length rather, for these pieces. I'm not going to show the actual putting this together, but I'll walk you through it. I'm going to drill from the underside to the top with a piece of wood clamped on top of this so that I don't spoil this surface. I'm going to use a carriage. Yeah, I believe it's a carriage bolt down through the top of this, and then I'll be tightening these onto here. There's really no reason to show you that, but I may do that anyway, just for one of these, not for all of them. And then I'll be taking it tomorrow morning to the client and offload it, put it together, and call it quits. This is the underside of the saddle rack. Now, repeated attempts to round off these edges right here was unsuccessful. There's still a chance somebody with thin skin could get cut. So what I've done is I've gone back with these bridges of wood. The way I do it is I measure the wood, and in this case, this one is a little angled, as you can see, instead of straight. So I drew it out with my pencil. I went back, hit it with a chop saw, and I used the chop saw to cut out this section right here where it sits on top of the wood. I'm getting ready to do this one, and I'll show you this from start to finish. I marked my cut line, and in this case it's a slight angle. And this is the side right here that I want to chop off to fit up against this piece of this flange. Once this is in place, this will safeguard anybody from being able to get their hands into it. I'll put just a little bit of sticky stuff on it. I'm using Tight Bond Ultimate Wood Glue. There are other wood glues. I've also used Elmer's and some other brands as well, and I've never had a problem. This is interior and exterior, and although this rack is going to be on the interior, it's not a problem to use exterior because there is high humidity here. Alright, I now place this on here. I make sure that it's all the way out to the edge in order to protect people from getting hung up on it. I use a clamp, and I'll stick 3 pilot holes. That's to help keep this wood from splitting. I set my drill so I can't drill all the way through. I do a plunge cut to get the cuttings out of the drill so it's a little more efficient. These are 1 1/2 dry board screws. And we're ready to turn this over and do the next one. Now there's a little bit of a gap here, but this gap is sufficient that as they hit this, they're going to be bumping into that wood, so they should be okay on that. And if I need, I can always come back and put something here. This is the end of the saddle rack building process. As you can see, I have everything in place. I have these over here on the ground which are ready to be delivered to the client in the morning. I appreciate you taking the time to sit through this incredibly long, drawn-out drama of building saddle racks. The white piece that you see at about a 15-degree angle is going to be the support for the pieces that are down here on the ground. And tomorrow I'll be taking this over and dropping it off. And this has been a very involved process. I'm not going to lie to you. It was it's a lot like writing a book. The devil is in the details, which would be editing if you're writing a book. I've written about 15 of them, come real close to being published, but never got the cigar. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. With that said, Dysfunctional Vet, out.